Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking one of the absolutely most extraordinary events in modern sports history, the 2026 World Cup final. But we aren't just looking at the goals and the glory here. We're looking at this event as a fascinating collision. It's this spectacular crash between the cold, hard certainty of mathematics, the utterly absurd heights of global spectacle, and of course, the beautiful, unpredictable poetry of human drama.
Okay, let's dive into this by asking a seemingly impossible question. The World Cup is the biggest sporting event on the planet, right? It's defined by lucky bounces, unpredictable referee decisions, and sheer human will. So could a statistical model, literally just a string of code and data, truly foresee the madness that unfolded in July 2026? To figure that out, we actually have to start our journey far, far away from the screaming fans and the freshly cut grass.
Section 1. Predicting the 2026 final.
We're stepping out of the chaos of the pitch and into the incredibly sterile, quiet world of sports data and algorithmic forecasting. Because long before that first whistle even blew, the numbers had already spoken. Prior to the tournament, researchers published a paper on Archive using this highly complex mathematical framework. They used something called the sufficient dimension reduction, or SDR for short, of ELO rating histories, which is basically a way to calculate the relative skill levels of teams. So they fed the historical performance data of all 48 nations into this model to project the outcome. And chillingly, the algorithm absolutely perfectly predicted the top two favorites. Out of 48 teams competing across North America, the math precisely singled out Spain and Argentina as the ultimate heavyweights. The data saw it coming. But, as we'll see, data can only predict who shows up. It can never predict exactly how the drama will unfold.
Section 2. The billion-dollar stage.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how crazy this highly anticipated, mathematically prophesied matchup really was. We were looking at a completely unprecedented scenario. On one side, you have Spain, the reigning European champions, entering the final on a staggering 37-match unbeaten streak in regulation time. On the other side, Argentina, the defending World Cup champions and the reigning Copa America champions. For the very first time in the tournament's history, two reigning continental champions, ranking number 1 and number 2 in the world, were facing off. It was a literal clash of titans.
The venue for this monumental showdown was MetLife Stadium, though it was temporarily rebranded as the New York-New Jersey Stadium to comply with FIFA regulations. We're talking about a colossal arena packed with 80,663 screaming spectators. But getting it ready wasn't easy at all. Organizers actually had to spend millions of dollars in renovations, completely tearing out over 1,700 seats in the lower bowl just to widen the pitch to meet FIFA's strict size requirements. They laid temporary Bermuda grass right over the artificial turf, setting up a literal billion-dollar stage for the world.
Now, a stage this big naturally attracts the most powerful people on Earth. In attendance, you had the leaders of the three host nations, U.S. President Donald Trump, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. King Felipe VI of Spain was also there to support his nation. But honestly, what's equally fascinating is who wasn't there. Argentine President Javier Milei actively declined to attend the match. And the reason? Purely out of superstition. He literally stayed home because he didn't want to jinx the national team.
And the off-pitch tension didn't stop there. Behind the scenes, there was some serious political drama. UEFA President Alexander Chefrin, representing the European Confederation, actually boycotted the final entirely. This was due to a heavy dispute with FIFA over a suspended disciplinary ban issued to U.S. player Folarin Balogun earlier in the tournament. So, before a single ball was even kicked, the atmosphere was already incredibly thick with international politics, superstition, and sky-high expectations.
Section 3. An unprecedented halftime spectacle.
Because, honestly, nothing could quite prepare the traditional footballing world for what happened when the referee blew the whistle for halftime. The mathematical models definitely didn't account for this. For the 2026 final, FIFA incorporated a highly commercialized, American-style Super Bowl-esque halftime show. Curated by Goldplay's Chris Martin, the sheer, absurd volume of performers was completely overwhelming. I mean, just look at this lineup. Madonna, Shakira, Justin Bieber, BTS, the New York Philharmonic, Burna Boy, and yes, the Muppets. They even had Jason Sudeikis and Brendan Hunt appearing in character as Ted Lasso and Coach Beard. It was a massive sensory overload aimed at raising money for the Global Citizen Education Fund. So, the crucial point is 27. That is exactly how many minutes this halftime show lasted. If you know the rules of association football, you know that the IFAB strictly caps halftime at 15 minutes. This spectacle blatantly broke the official laws of the game. It nearly doubled the allowed break time, leaving the players just waiting in the locker rooms while a literal circus unfolded out on the pitch. The reaction from traditional football fans was, well, let's just say it was mixed. A lot of commentators felt it was an unwanted Americanization of the sport. But perhaps no one summed it up more bluntly than former England striker Wayne Rooney, who, live on the BBC broadcast, just flat out stated, it was crap. It provides this amazing comedic contrast to the millions of dollars and months of planning that went into the whole shebang. Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 4, the grueling 120-minute battle. Once the music finally stopped and the Muppets cleared out, the physical reality of the match set back in, and it was incredibly grueling. If we look at the core statistics, it tells a story of absolute, suffocating dominance by the Spanish midfield. Spain commanded 65% of the possession. But it's the shots that are wild. Spain rained down 20 total shots, with 12 on target. Argentina, the defending world champions, managed a total of just 2 shots, 0 on target. It's a massive statistical anomaly that highlights just how effectively Spain neutralized Argentina's legendary attack. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the historical weight of that defensive performance. It is staggering. For the first 90 minutes of the match, the entirety of regulation time, Argentina failed to register a single shot, not one. They became the first team in the entire history of the World Cup final to achieve this grim milestone. The math predicted Argentina would be here, for sure, but it didn't predict they would be entirely silenced for 90 minutes. This forced the game into extra time, raising the physical and emotional stakes through the roof. Finally, in the 106th minute, the deadlock was broken. Substitute Ferran Torres received a headed pass from Nico Williams and smashed a left-footed shot into the net. Spain was up 1-0. The clock was ticking, and Argentina grew desperate. In the 117th minute, Lionel Messi finally got Argentina's first shot of the match off, but in a brutal symbol of the physical toll of the game, the ball struck Spanish midfielder Mikel Merino right in the face, knocking him straight to the turf. The only reason this match even went to extra time, and the only reason Argentina survived that relentless onslaught of 20 Spanish shots, was their goalkeeper, Emiliano Martinez. Martinez put on an absolutely heroic defensive performance, recording 11 saves. That is the most saves ever recorded by a goalkeeper in a World Cup final. He was a literal one-man wall out there, enduring the pressure and keeping the South Americans in a grueling battle that stretched them to their absolute limits.
Section 5. Passing the generational torch.
After 120 minutes of tactical warfare, after the stats are tallied and the algorithmic prophecies are fulfilled, we have to transition away from the numbers, because the conclusion of this tournament offered us a moment of pure human poetry. After the final whistle confirmed Spain's victory, amidst all the tears and celebrations, there was this deeply symbolic moment on the pitch. 39-year-old Lionel Messi, the undisputed legend, likely playing his final World Cup match, shared a poignant embrace with 19-year-old Spanish prodigy Lamine Yamal. It was an unmistakable physical passing of the torch, from the defining player of the last 2 decades to the rising star poised to define the next. But the context of this embrace is what elevates it from a nice sports moment to modern mythology. Back in 2007, a 20-year-old Lionel Messi took part in a charity photo shoot in Barcelona. In those photos, Messi is seen smiling, bathing an infant in a small plastic tub. That infant? It was Lamine Yamal. Nearly 20 years later, they met on the biggest stage in global sports, battling for the World Cup. Look, algorithms and sufficient dimension reduction models can correctly predict that Spain and Argentina will face off, but they can never predict this incredible, full-circle human story. This is why we actually watch. The 2026 World Cup final really gave us everything. Uncanny mathematical predictions, a bizarre 27-minute halftime circus, a suffocating tactical masterclass, and an emotional conclusion nearly 2 decades in the making. It leaves us to wonder, as we close this explainer, with the game becoming increasingly driven by data and commercial spectacle, will the beautiful game ever see a poetic, human passing of the torch quite like this again? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the data behind the drama.